A typical restaurant with 10 employees deals with between 120 and 240 call-outs each year, and studies suggest that every call-out costs a restaurant somewhere around $150 to $200 in lost profits, which might sound like a lot, but when you think about how much you have to pay for overtime for people to cover lost sales due to slower service, people that aren't used to doing things that they're kind of covering for, so tables get turned slower, frustrated customers is a big one, and then dealing with last-minute changes, your managers and leaders like having to deal with the last-minute call-outs. So it starts to make sense when you think about all of those things that go into that lost profit. And so for a small restaurant owner, that's between $27,000 and $36,000 in lost profit per year for a small 10-employee restaurant. And so that's why I'm going to make it really easy on you with a 4-step process that you can take right away to cut call-outs down to less than half of the average. In fact, a small restaurant can cut their call-outs down to like 2 or 3 a month just because of how simple this is and how well it plays on some good old-fashioned human psychology. But first, let's talk a little bit about why call-outs happen. Sometimes they are absolutely legit, and we don't want people coming in when they're sick, right? Especially in food services. But we all know that many times people call out sick when in reality they just aren't being responsible or they don't feel like coming to work. And here's the thing, if you don't give people any more reason not to call out other than just what they could earn for a working day, it's hard to beat the average, and therefore it's hard to keep call-outs down. So the secret, and you're going to see this in the theme with these 4 steps that I'll show you, is to give employees some reasons to want not to call out beyond just pay. So let's dive right in. The first reason is make it a policy that staff actually has to call in order to call out. Don't let people text or leave a voicemail or send an email or send off carrier pigeons or smoke signals or something in order to call out. Just having to talk with someone in person who's going to be inconvenienced by the call out makes it less comfortable for an employee to call out. It's what's called the psychology of discomfort, and it's super powerful. And so just asking people to call as the policy in order to call out makes a big difference. While we're on this idea of the psychology of discomfort, let's take a teeny little detour, and I'll give you a bonus here. And that is, there's something that you can do in your management style that will make a massive difference in getting things done, getting people to follow through on things that you've asked them to do. Stop using the words, did you, when you're asking about something that you assigned them. Did you get the ice maker cleaned out, right? Instead, replace those with what happened when you cleaned the ice maker. It's again kind of falling into that psychology of discomfort. It's a lot more uncomfortable to say, oh, I didn't have a chance to get that done when somebody asks you what happened when you got this done, than it is to just say, oh, no, I didn't have a chance. If you ask, did you get the thing done? So, quick little bonus here that can apply to this psychology of discomfort and use it to your advantage. Let's come back now to minimizing call-outs. The second part of the call-out process that I'm sharing with you here is what I call CPR Conversations. Now, I just love the book Crucial Conversations. If you haven't read it, go get it on Audible, because I know we're busy, and listen to it while you're driving. By the way, if you want another recommendation that is really good for having conversations that make a difference, it's How to Say Anything to Anyone by Sherry Hartley. Also an amazing book. Also get it on Audible. How you communicate or don't communicate with a staff member. Like, for example, in this case, the first few times they call out, let's say that they've called out a couple of times in a month, how you communicate sets the pattern. It trains them on what's okay to do in the future. So let's say somebody just called out for their second time in the month and you don't say a thing to them about it. You've just trained them to keep calling out more and more and more until you do say something, right? Why are we afraid? And I am too, let's just be real. It feels scary to kind of talk to people and call them to the carpet if you don't want them, because we don't want them to quit. It's hard enough, especially in restaurants, it's hard enough now to find good people. And so the antidote to that is to have almost a pre-scripted discussion in mind that you're ready to go with for when, because it's a when, not if, for when people call out to a level that is unacceptable. And the CPR pattern stands for current, pattern, and then the R is relationship and reinforcement. Okay, so let's just role play this for a second. If you were to talk with somebody who has called out for a second time in a month, first is current. Yesterday, you called out for the second time this month. Pattern is, I'm not saying that your reason for calling out wasn't legit, but over the years, we found here that if people get into a habit, i.e. a pattern, of calling out multiple times in a month, it causes, now here's the R, relationship, others on the team, and frankly myself, to feel anxiety. And sometimes it can build up resentment. And I don't want that because, now here's the other R, reinforcement. You're important to me, right? You're important to the team. By the way, I like to, you're important to me because people don't leave companies, they leave managers. And so if I signal to you, you're important to me, so I'm talking to you about this. And I'm going to ask you not to make it a pattern or habit of calling out multiple times in a month. Now, that's a way that you can use the CPR method to have a real conversation with people that, at least for me, doesn't seem insulting and it doesn't seem as scary as just I got to talk to somebody, let's have them come in here and then think about what to say. And so using the CPR method to communicate is super effective. And by the way, if you need to, you can use CPR with elevated stuff. So let's say that it didn't work the first time you talked with them, and now you've seen 2 or 3 months in a row where they're calling out. Now it's current. Okay, I'm seeing a pattern of you calling out multiple times in a month. And if that pattern continues, we're going to need to look at the relationship. In other words, let's just be real, we're going to need to look at whether or not you working here is a good fit for you and for us. Because, and here's the reinforcement, I have to reiterate to you that employees who make it a habit of calling out multiple times in a month, that really creates problems in our company. So it's something we take seriously. Right, so you can use CPR even if you have to elevate it up, and kind of sending the signal that we can't keep people around if they call out all the time. Number 3, this is what I call base plus or base plus pay. This strategy, I almost never hear of any restaurants that are doing this, and yet it's super effective. And it's not that hard to execute. We'll do a little bit of math here, but don't worry. It's just really simple math, okay? Give every employee's compensation a little teeny bit of performance pay. And here's what the performance part is. Have some of the performance attached to having minimal callouts. So let's say that you run a fast food restaurant and pay $11.20 per hour, which, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's the average pay across the US for fast food workers. Now, every area is different, so I'm just using this as an example. Okay, let's say that you pay $11.20 an hour. Overtime pay at time and a half costs you $16.80 an hour. Okay, now overtime pay, what's the biggest cause? Most of it is employee callouts. For most of us, employees calling out somebody else needs to cover who's already got full hours. That's what causes a lot of overtime, right? So base plus pay is just a program that I've used many times. That's simply that anyone who has 0 callouts in a month gets a thank you boost of, say, 50 cents more per hour for that month. Try not to make it per payroll. You want to stretch it out longer, right? So if you can make it per month, then do that. And here's how to make this super safe for you. You can almost turn this into a mathematically guaranteed win. All right, go out and calculate how much you're paying on average in overtime every month and see if paying every employee, 100% of them, if you paid them all 50 cents more per hour, would the total of that be more or less than what you're paying on average in overtime? If what you would pay everybody would be more, then trim the boost down to maybe 25 cents an hour. If you're paying a lot of overtime every month, make the pay boost higher. Like I've heard of some doing as much as $2 an hour more for people who have 0 callouts. Why? Because people who aren't, overtime, you have people that are tired, they're often in positions they're not as good at, you're less profitable, and it's less of a pain in the neck, right? So if you pay people a little bit more, and if the math means I'm going to make that up in less overtime, then it's a win-win. And keep it super simple. My experience has been it's kind of all or none. 0 callouts for any reason triggers the boost. And it is a boost. It's above what you're getting paid. So it's not a punishment, although the psychology of it is people hate losing stuff. So like you'll walk for 5 miles back to a movie theater to retrieve $20 that you left there. But if somebody came to you and said, hey, I'll pay you $20 to walk 5 miles, you probably wouldn't do it. So if people are working and they're like, oh, I need to call out, or they're thinking about calling out, and they know that, I'm going to lose that extra bonus if I do, they're going to think about it, and you don't even have to be the jerk, right? It's just a 0 call out boost, and it causes them to think twice about whether or not they really should call out. So kind of the boost pay, or the base plus is what I call that. Now this last one is like really cheap and super duper effective, and it's what I call the core or call out rock stars strategy. Every 3 months, have a drawing for some cool prize. And what I found, by the way, is that tangible stuff is way more effective than cash. So think like a flat screen TV or an Xbox or an iPad or a cruise. One of my companies, we had a crew that was kind of the right demographic for this. We actually gave away a rental for a Harley Davidson for a week. Like we actually rented a Harley Davidson. It's fairly cheap and came with the insurance and all of that. And then what you do is you display the prize somewhere. That's why the tangible thing works. Like, okay, here's the TV that you can win this time. And you put a big sign out on it that says, call out rock stars, right? So here are the rock stars that call out rock stars for us for this quarter. And now here's what you're going to do. Every month, you're going to go and look for anybody who hasn't had a call out for the month. And then you're going to put those names up on a poster with a mark next to it, right? And then at the end of the quarter, you're also going to go and look, anybody who hasn't had any call outs for the entire quarter gets 5 extra marks, right? So a total of 8, 3 for each of the months and 5 for not missing anything within the month. Now what you do is you go get some cheap raffle tickets, and you can buy like one of those giant raffle ticket wheels for like 5 cents and a can of Coke on Amazon, like super cheap. You can get a whole wheel of them. You can go buy some cheap raffle tickets, and all you're gonna do is give one ticket for every mark next to everybody's name. There's a lot of value in actually putting all of the names up there and having it visible. Here are the call out rock stars. And there's even value in handing them the blank ticket and having them write their name on the back of the ticket. Then you stick it in a bowl, you shake the bowl up and you reach in and you pull somebody out. I've gotten to where this is so effective that we'll actually do 2 or 3 prizes every quarter. Maybe costs a couple of $100, but what we save in profit, when I'm thinking about $150 to $200 for every call out, that's what it's costing me. I can buy a lot of Xboxes for 120 to 240 call outs, right? And so this idea of call out rock stars, these are processes that create culture that make people want to not call out as opposed to having to stress about it and figure out how to use the negative, right? Okay, so those are the 4 steps that you could take to create a process for handling call outs. And I use that word process, which brings me to what I think is a really critical point. Better processes are the answer to virtually every challenge you're facing in your business. And I don't say that as just hyperbole. I've personally acquired over a dozen struggling companies and turned them around successfully, and I've helped thousands of other businesses turn their companies into machines that work for them rather than them needing to work for the business. And the secret in every case was better processes. So if you want to go beyond just solving the call out headaches and learn how to actually put your business on autopilot, then click on this link and you can save a seat for my process designing speed class. Now, I used to call it a master class, but this is a class for people who don't have time for classes. So I show you everything you need to know, keep it super simple, and I get right to the point with what I call my 4-step flow method for creating processes in your business. And here's the thing, I don't charge anything for it, but it just flat out puts your business to work for you. So click here and I'll show you all of it, all 4 of the steps in the flow method for creating better business processes, regardless of what the challenge is, how to create better processes and put your business so that it flows automatically for you.